AskGunQuestions.com is a website that we built back in 2007, and since then, for the last 15 years, people have been able to ask questions of simple to advanced nature, and we attempt to answer them in different ways over the years. Join us now as we start a new series to answer gun questions. All right, welcome everybody to our Ask Gun Questions show. I don't know if Tony's going to join us. I think I saw something about in Instagram that he's driving up to that thing in Pennsylvania again today for the second weekend. So he might be driving or something, or running around that show. Anyway, Clover's joining us. Thanks for jumping in. It's muted.
Yeah, you bet.
So we were just talking phones and stuff, and I was just, since I've got a bunch of phones now to play with and review, I'm just talking to Clover. I'm going to put a van in the vehicle for the like the Waze app and the maps, of course. Well, Waze essentially, but then that Gas Buddy app and then the OBD sensor. I got this little dealie that throws it to Bluetooth, I guess, and then you can just Bluetooth to that all the time, and it'll essentially let you see a tachometer and all your heating, and basically lets you look at a whole bunch of your sensors and stuff. You can get like a alternative dashboard or extra gauges on your dashboard on the phone. So I'm going to have, and then just have that one in the phone or in the van all the time to be like a monitor. Oh, and then also the dash cam, because my dash cams don't have screens on them. And even then, that phone might be taxed. You know, that's a lot of stuff. I might want to do more than one of those things at a time. But I'm thinking have a phone in the van all the time to do that stuff. The only thing I could think of is maybe making that a tablet, right? Because I do have a tablet thanks to Chris. So bigger screen. And the problem is having a tablet mounted, like in the cop car. I think the tablet would be awesome. Like instead of the laptop, put a tablet in there. That'd be awesome because there's place for the laptop in the cop car. In the van, though, I'm just thinking have it in the one cup holder. I have this like robot arm that comes out of the cup holder and holds your phone for you. So I was going to do that. But then I'm going to have one phone that's just for the drones because I got a couple of drones and I plan on getting more. So I'm going to keep the drone software on those phones. And then I was thinking there was something else. Oh, some drone maps and things. There's some maps when you're a drone pilot, essentially maps of where the airports are and other things that don't let you fly around them. So having that in there, and there's probably some other drone apps I don't even know about. And then anyway, so what do you think of that idea of having older phones become dedicated to those things?
Yeah, why not?
And then I guess one to be my kind of camera. Oh, okay. Tony says he's hanging around that Great American Outdoor Show for a second weekend in a row. You'll check in when you get someplace where you can do it. Yeah, no worries, man. Have fun. Do either of us have any experience with 450 SMC? What would that be? I don't even know what that is. 450 Smith & Wesson? 450 Smith & Wesson Colt? That would be a unique cartridge. I don't know what that one is, though. You know what it is? He's muted, so he doesn't know what it is. It's a cartridge that made Clover fall over.
Man, it's like I don't know. As far as I know, no, I don't. But it's kind of like I don't know. It's kind of like a modified 45 ACP, I guess.
Oh. 450 SMC is the real thing then? SMC.
Yeah, it's kind of like a...
Oh, it's real. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It's real. It's definitely a Wildcat thing, but.
Oh, it comes up as a motorbike also. It's an orange motorbike from
really
ETM. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting.
I'm trying to find the bullet. Here it is. Looks like a 45 to me.
Yeah.
What's the difference then?
It's like a hotter 45.
There's like no reason, or there's no pictures of it next to a regular 45 or anything.
Right.
All right. Well, so I like that little dirt bike though. Anyway.
You're not screen sharing. I don't know if you think you are, but you're not.
No, I'm not. I got all kinds of stuff on the screen. I just popped it open to see what it was. But anyway, yeah, we are doing Ask Gun questions. Normally, we would be sharing the screen. Normally, Tony Simon is with us. He's playing around in Pennsylvania, enjoying the Great Outdoors Show. So we got a bunch of people joining us live. Krabby Turtle's out there. Patriot jumped in before we were even live. Good morning, good afternoon to everybody. Roy is out there, 500 Magnum. Weston, and if anybody else is out there, feel free to say hey. Now, we are here to answer gun questions, and we've been kind of slack in the last couple weeks, been sloppy on it. So I'm going to head over to the database of questions, and I don't know if I need to screen share it or not. And y'all can trust that I'm finding the questions over here. I am basically pulling a bunch of videos and stuff off of my phone, so I got all kinds of folders and stuff open on my screen right now. And instead of closing all that, I'd rather just jump in and get in here. So we did miss a bunch of questions in December, and I do apologize for that. I know people do take the time to jump over there and ask questions, and we do appreciate it, and we will answer those questions, just so we take advantage of the live conversations, the people that show up live, to kind of go off on tangents. Clover walked away, so I'm going to try to find one that he can't even answer anyway. Let's see. If a magazine is 380 ACP, can it then fit in the AMT 380 ACP? Which brand of 10-round magazine would properly fit in the AMT 380 ACP backup? All right, so let's take ACP out of there. So that just makes it super confusing. I guess I will now open up this. No, there's no reason to screen capture. You know what? I think I can just take and copy the whole question in here, bring it up on the screen. What do you think of that? I've never thought of that before. I just evolved the whole thing. So there you go. I'm going to push it up on the Daily Gun Show side. So if you are interested, if you're saying this show is so awesome and they're answering questions in such an awesome way that I'm going to go super chat this stuff, you can go over to this channel and super chat. Our other channel, oh, that's what I was going to ask Clover about. Our other channel is demonetized. That's what I need to ask you about, dude. You back yet? All right, I'm going to put in the side chat so I remember to ask him. How do I get over to the side chat again? Private chat.
All right, I'm back.
All right, hey, I need to talk to you about demonetization. That's what I was going to talk to you about before we went live. But we've kind of chatted about it here and there, but I'm getting to my deadline, so I do need to ask you about what I should do.
Yeah,
I want that till Monday. Yeah. So I just don't want to forget. I do have to do it before Monday. So I just figured out if I take the question and put it into the thing, I can highlight it. I just evolved the show. So there you go. So anyhow, let's dig into this question. I'm going to get rid of the ACPs because it just makes it confusing, is what I was going to say there.
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear that there's a dog snoring near the camera, near the microphone?
Oh, almost always.
Let's see. So I'm getting rid of the ACP, and I'm getting rid of the ACP. I've been lectured that it's a bad idea to have a dog in a video, especially a gun-related video. All right, so there's the question. If a magazine is 380, can it then fit in the AMT 380? Which brand of 10-round magazine would properly fit the AMT 380 backup?
That's a good question. I have no idea.
Go ahead.
Just because a magazine holds 380 doesn't mean that it fits all 380s. I mean, it's really quickly we need to point that out. So, unless I'm missing something, there's way too many variables to say which magazine fits the AMT 380. Like, I don't know.
Yep, exactly. So here's the deal. There's, back in the day at least, you would come out with a gun and you would think about, if I'm going to make a revolver, okay. If I'm going to make a semi-auto, I got to set a different set of issues to deal with. Sometimes they'd think to themselves, what's the most important thing of a semi-auto pistol, Clover? The most important thing of a semi-auto pistol.
Ooh.
The decision if you're going to make one, or what element of it, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I guess everyone's going to have a different answer. I'm not saying there's a right answer. But I think that's going to be like the feeding or that's operation, because like anybody can build something that looks cool or that feels good, but if it doesn't work, it doesn't
like
work, and you kind
the
of
cycling, but the cycling involves so many different things, right? So that's what threw me with your question. I'm like,
well,
that
no, but that's
cycling could
really
be,
the answer is that you got to make
yeah,
this thing work, and essentially you
yeah,
need a couple of things for a pistol, and that's it. All happens with the magazine. There's the magazine, there's the barrel, right? There's the slide, like those things
magazine,
all
the ramp,
exist,
the chamber is, that
and right,
is
and then
important.
no matter what your answer is, you're going to end up with at least an option or two, or an element or two is going to be the magazine. So I'm thinking back in the day when they were coming up with new guns, they would go, "What magazines are available?" And that would happen a lot. Like, what magazines did they make during one of the world wars? So now there's all these magazines laying around, so that we don't
Yeah,
have to make any magazines; they're free. And then they go, "Okay, let's make a gun around that magazine for whatever reason," right? Or they go, "Let's make a gun. Oh, our magazine is just so close to whatever's magazine. Let's just buy our magazine bodies from what's its face and then change our magwell a little bit, and now we're essentially not using their magazine, but we're using their magazine because the magazine bodies coming from the same place. We're just drilling our like latch in a different place or in a different angle or something." So anyway, I think that's what happened is a lot of companies used each other's mag bodies or used the popular mag bodies. Not a lot, but some companies did that. And I think, you think of like a Beretta mag body. How many gun that you know of in 9mm use a Beretta and a mag body?
a lot, but that
Yeah.
still doesn't mean they work, right? We're
No,
talking
no,
about
no. They don't work with each
body.
other, but they all fit in each other. And a lot of
Yeah,
times people will go, "Oh, you can get that one and then just whittle a new hole in it and now it will work." And half the time
it's
it
true.
does.
Yeah,
Right. And that's where I think that mentality comes from, maybe.
yeah,
Or, yeah, maybe people just don't realize that magazines aren't like batteries in a flashlight, where if it says it's 380, it's like saying it's a double A. Like, okay, it
right.
doesn't matter what brand you
Yeah,
buy, you
good
just put them in
analogy.
there. It's not quite like that. Or
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
Pez, maybe. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah, good analogy. Yeah.
But
Yep.
so yeah, that's the question: is what magazines? Well, I don't even know. You know how you find out though? It's super easy. It's super easy, and you get to go to a gun show. Go to a gun show. You can bring your gun if you want, just for shits and giggles, because it's always fun to bring your gun to a gun show. But just go to a gun show and look for that table that's an entire island of magazines, and go up to that person and say, "I have a magazine. I have this gun. Blah blah blah." And then they'll go, "All right, let's go over to this section of the table," and they're going to start showing you all the old magazines that probably cost a bit more, probably some old junky magazines that cost a little less, some new magazines that are XYZ, and then maybe some plastic versions of the new magazine, depending on what gun it is.
Right.
So that's probably my suggestion: is just go to a
Yeah.
couple of gun shows and talk to the person who's got all those magazines. They know way more about magazines than any gun shop you're going to find. There's no way they got into magazines that much without really being into magazines for some reason.
Right. Yeah. It's
And they,
valid.
yeah. And you almost, if you go to a large enough gun show, you're going to get that guy or that company, right?
Yeah. Like the Wanamaker Tulsa Arms Show, the largest gun show in the world, for example. Twice a year in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Um,
Yeah, standard for that AMT 380, I think, is like a 5 round or something, isn't it? So that's another thing that was throwing me. It's like weird.
all right. So the next question, I guess I'm just going to go one up. I recently acquired a new Ruger. Oh, I'm not logged in. I'm not strange here. Oh, I'm doing this. I'm highlighting the question and dragging it over. If I can. I think this one might be too long. Oh yeah. I recently acquired. Let's try to get this on the screen. I recently acquired a new Ruger made Marlin 1895 and 4570. I went online and ordered 3 boxes of HSM. That's a company.
Oh, yeah.
Bear 430 grain bear loads at plus P. All right, 430 grain bear loads in a 4570 plus P. HSM indicates that it is safe to shoot in a Marlin 1895, but my manual states that it's not recommended to shoot plus P ammunition. Is it unsafe to shoot this ammo in my new rifle? So it's a new made Ruger. shooting plus P4570. Where you're coming down on this one?
So since the manual says that, just keep in mind if it does have a problem, ammunition related or otherwise, and in some way they can see or say that you have done that, yeah, you can forget warranty. I can tell you that much. And so when I say that, how are they going to know? You know, you could post something on social media nowadays. I mean, there's no telling, right? That you tell on yourself. So of course the ammo companies are going to say it's safe to shoot in that, right? They're going to say it's safe to shoot in that because they want to be able to sell the ammo. Some companies are on the level. I mean, that particular one, I don't have any experience with, honestly. But some of them are going to say it just because they want to be able to sell the ammo, right? My advice for anybody that is trying to shoot things that are not necessarily recommended in the owner's manual is if you do it sparingly. You can typically tell, especially if you have very much experience, you can run one around and go, that's a little bit much for this thing. Like, you know, the way the recoil impulse felt, you know, a lot of other factors, you're like, I don't know about this, right? You can take and inspect that case once you eject it, right? If it shows signs of strain, if it's a situation where maybe the primer's backed out a little bit, or um, you know, you can see any kind of stretch marks or stuff like that. If you shoot it and it's hard to eject, right, that means it was so powerful that it really pushed that brass up against the wall to the point that, you know, minor imperfections in the chamber, you know, little machining grooves that are nearly microscopic, right? It potentially pushed brass up in that. Maybe it even stretched the brass into the, you know, outside of the chamber area itself, right, which made it hard to eject. Um, there's some things like that you can tell from firing one round. Um, I would venture a guess that, you know, I don't know a lot about the new Marlin built. Uh, I mean the new Ruger built Marlins, right? I know that I'm a huge Marlin fan, and for a long time Marlins were awesome. Remington acquired them more than anything, and everything dropped a little bit as far as quality. Um, Ruger, I've got pretty good faith that Ruger, you know, there are specific Ruger loads mentioned in reloading manuals, right? Because Rugers tend to be more robust. You know, have they translated that out now that they're, you know, they're making the Marlins or they've taken over Marlins? Have they tweaked anything? That would be or are they just running with the same Remington machinery specs and everything else? And I don't know that question, but I think at least for modern use, um, you know, then moderate use, I should say, then I think you're going to be fine. If you're going out and running 430 grain ammo and you're running, you know, 3 boxes a day, 3 boxes a range trip or something through it, and you go out to the range every, you know, couple of weeks or month or whatever, my opinion is that's too much of that ammo for sure. You're talking about consistent heavy pressures and wear, right? That's occurring with that. So I would not advise regular use. And that type of ammo is not designed for regular use. What a lot of people don't understand. You know, just because you can shoot it in there doesn't mean that there's a reason there's such a thing as target and range ammo, right? Like your self-defense stuff is not really designed to be shot. And that's why it's more expensive than everything else too. It's not designed to be shot. Let's go out plink and have some fun. So I would say just keep those factors in mind.
I'm not going to really add anything to that one. I think you got most of it, I guess. I mean, the only thing maybe to add would be check around online. Neither one of us have actual experience with it, so maybe go to a forum or something and see if
Wes has a good point too, and so the caveat that manufacturers have with really hot ammunition in their stuff is more often than not like a liability thing, right? Um, a lot of the hotter ammo is made by smaller companies, boutique companies, things of that nature, and so you get some ammo from someplace that's not reputable. They don't know what they're doing. You can even have problems from like ammunition, like lower powered ammunition from major manufacturers. Problems do occur. You get a smaller manufacturer that's pushing the ragged edge on pressures and everything else, and then you get a slip up. Um, it could be pretty bad. So a lot of it's liability to absolve themselves from liability. They say don't do it. I mean, but I'm going to sit here and probably tell you that, I mean, there's people that bungee jump off bridges every day of the week, right? Um, I'm going to tell you the same thing, that you probably don't want to do that every single day of your life. Um, with strain on your body and the chances of something going wrong and other things at play, right? Or skydiving, right? It's like, you increase your chances of something happening. So, that's my mitigation of risk, an example of the same thing as shooting really hot ammo through a firearm.
I ain't got time to walk down those bridge stairs, old man.
Yeah,
I just
right.
bungee jump and disconnect down at the bottom. Sometimes I let it bounce twice.
Yeah.
Just
well, if you do it at the right time, right? Like it wouldn't be a problem.
Perfect.
You'd have to time it right.
You just don't want to be standing above the line when it comes back.
All the velocity. You have to wait until the max whatever velocity has been reached or whatever, or slowed, and then disconnect. But yeah.
So Weston is now saying if you never skydive, your chance of dying from skydiving is 0. Well, first off, unless you're standing underneath of a skydiver.
This is true. Yeah.
Well, all right. So it's 6.5 Creedmoor, and I have a 6.5. Let me put it back up here. I have a 6.5 Creedmoor, and a live 308 is on the bolt, not the barrel. Can't eject the round. That's interesting. So somebody put a 308 on the bolt, and now they can't eject it from the gun, I'm guessing. So if I'm assuming your chamber, you put the 308 in there to chamber it in a 6.5. I don't have any idea if that fits or not, but the bolt came in and grabbed the back of the rim, and now what? It won't come out and eject. So if it's inside the chamber there, it's inside the where the where the bolt rides. Maybe they're having trouble getting it off of the to get the ejector to let go of it. And since it's a live round, they don't know what to do. Have you ever had that before? Have you ever seen that? He's muted. He's scared. It scares him.
Yeah.
Bolt action question.
I was just trying Creedmoor. Live 308 is on the bolt of the barrel. It doesn't say. It just says a bolt. It doesn't say it's a bolt action.
Oh, well, I'm assuming it's a bolt action, but that's the only thing I can think of where you'd have I guess you could have a semi-auto with the same situation, right? Where the thing catches on and it won't. Is a 308 so long that it won't come out on the 6.5?
So here's the thing. The reason I don't think that has anything to do with it. I don't think the bolt has anything to do with it, and here's why. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong out there for absolutely sure. But isn't 308 and 6.5 Creedmoor the exact same bolt head, the exact same case head dimensions?
I don't remember. Is 6.5 made out of 30-06 or is it made out of 308?
6.5, to my knowledge, it goes back and it eventually encompasses the 308. Yeah, but 308 was based off 30-06. So
that's what I'm wondering. If it's made out of 30-06, maybe there's just a hair difference, something in the measurements back there, and it could catch. But anyway, so what do you think this is reading then? Like, is that what I'm describing, where the rim is caught on the ejector and it's just not the bolt is in whatever kind of gun it is isn't letting go, and they can't get it out of the gun, and it's live and they don't know what to do?
Maybe it says it can't eject the round. I mean, maybe the I don't know. maybe there's something wrong with the extractor, right? I mean, it could be something like that. Has it been fired? Has it not been fired? I mean, it's not.
If it's not been fired, it would be a little, or I mean, if it's been shot, like, and it just didn't go off, it's a, come on, what's going on here? If it's been fired
says
and not, then I wouldn't be as worried. But if it's sitting in there and the hammering, the firing pin's back, I could see somebody stressing out about that.
Yeah, we'll just pull it. Well,
Kind of depending on which
I would
gun
say
it is.
pull the bolt back, but it's saying it can't eject. So I don't know if we're talking about a bolt gun, a semi-auto, right? If we're talking about like an AR-10, right? And it's locked in there somehow. Or will it not eject, meaning that you can pull the bolt back and forth and it's not doing anything? It's not grabbing the cartridge. I don't know.
It says it's in the bolt, not the barrel. So I'm guessing that means it's seated in the bolt, gripped with the extractor, because they specifically said not the barrel.
Yeah.
Right.
So the bolt chambering issue is not a problem, as MC points out there. The 22, 250, 243, 6 Creed, 6.5 Creed, 708, 308, and 8.6
all
Blackout
these calibers use the same,
are all the same
case.
bolts.
Yeah,
all the same.
So that they're all the same case. So they're all using the same bolt face.
Yeah.
So unless there's something wrong with that particular thing, like maybe the primer's goofy or something, and now it's pinned in there somewhere, that it's like some kind of weird, twisted nail puzzle or something. But
something's going on. I mean, is it possible? Did the question say it said 6.5 Creedmoor on the barrel?
No, I mean, I have the whole question right here. I have a 6.5 Creedmoor, and a live 308 is in the bolt, not the barrel. Can't eject the round.
So 308 is on the bolt, but not the barrel, and it can't eject the round.
So to me, it sounds like
is it possible to jam a 6.5 Creedmoor into a 308? Possible they've got a 308 rifle and they've jammed a 6.5 Creedmoor up in the chamber?
Well, since they've got the same case, it's possible for sure that somebody's going to pick it up at the range and try to put it in there and go,
it's not the same
wrong
dimensions. It's not the same dimensions past the case head, though. We have to keep that in mind.
Okay, the big whoop. Obviously, it happened. So somebody was either testing it or accidentally did it. But I could totally understand where you create a puzzle where you jam, let's say, on a bolt action. You bring the bolt back, you put your cartridge in, you put it forward. Oh, it doesn't work. Pull it out, and now it won't come out the front because it was too long in the first place, and it's locked into the thing. And now, it's not going to eject like this. That could freak you out. And typically, you're gonna, once it's back like that, at the range, downrange, if you can pull the trigger and release the bolt and just pull it all the way off and then take it out. Or if it's a semi-auto, you're dealing with an AR, and now you're really in trouble if you got a 308 in the stack of a magazine in 6.5 and it comes up and gets in there, rams into let's say this ear canal is the chamber, and this is the case cartridge going in there, goes in there, but it won't fit good. So you go to pull it back, right? And if that gets locked in there, now your bolt carrier is sticking out into your receiver extension. You're not opening the gun.
It's out of battery. Yeah.
Yeah, you're really in trouble there. So there's some options, and they're going to include calling up a gun shop or the range at a shop with a range or something, and they're either going to do something or else they could, disable the round and then get it out of there. But that can be annoying. I'm just assuming it's some kind of a trick puzzle type of thing that they got themselves into. I could be totally off here, and it could be something else completely. That's not really the best description. So,
right. Well, and we talked about that before. Sometimes when we're dealing with, with ask gun questions, and it's a common thing. Like there are people that they don't know enough, and why would they if they were asking gun questions, but they don't know enough to ask the question the right way or something like that. It does happen.
Oh yeah. We're not. I mean, that you can't know until you ask.
Right. Yeah.
Tony is saying that Richard stuck 5.56 round into his case with a sticker on it somehow, and that got it stuck in there so it wouldn't eject, and then they had to shoot AKs. So,
Right.
it's possible that, yeah, there was something that should work, but for whatever reason, it's that particular one is broke or wrong or dented or stepped on or something. You didn't realize it and it gets jammed in there. But this sounded like it was on the bolt. I'm guessing on the, something about the ejector or the bolt wasn't letting go. And I don't know, you could get a rock jammed in there and get one of those again, like a twisted nail puzzle where it like only goes together the one way and it looks like it's an impossible puzzle. Sometimes you can get a piece of sand or something into the
I've
bolt.
had I've had totally valid, and I mean, if we're talking about um, 6.5 Creedmoor here, I don't know of any like lacquered steel case 6.5 Creedmoor, but I can tell you that with my FAL, um, at least when I first got it, we've since rectified the situation from happening for the most part because my FAL is built by a very reputable person. Anyway, when I first got it, I was running some lacquered steel case stuff through it, and like when it would get hot, it would come a point to where you would fire it, and if you didn't eject it fairly quick, like it was hot, so it like melted the lacquer, and then if you let it sit for any length of time, and as it cooled, the lacquer would harden, and it's like you'd have to pogo the crap out of it to get to, you know what I mean, to get it to eject. So I don't know if they're running lacquer stuff, but it's potentially an issue like that too.
Yeah, you don't hear about it too much, but that's what happens when you don't hear about something because it kind of went out of fashion for that reason. Somebody will buy a box and go, "Oh, I'm not going to, I have a bunch of boxes. Quit shooting it, put it in the back of the shelf." Somehow it gets back into circulation years later, and nobody knows what lacquer is anymore because nobody's been shooting it for years.
Right. Yep.
Let's see. What is the barrel? What is this? What is the barrel thread tenon dimensions of a Browning BLR B81 steel receiver model? I imagine
Whoa.
you know that one off the top of your head, so I'll just have that one over to Clover.
Yeah. I don't
The
know.
barrel thread dimensions of a Browning BLR B81 steel receiver. I know the ones for the brass receivers, but I can't keep track of all the steel receiver ones. They're in metric, and I don't keep track of metric numbers in my head.
Um,
So I don't know where that one came from. Maybe they're trying to be funny or something.
I don't know. I can consult a book. Um,
Yeah, but that's a technical question that somebody who's either a gunsmith or is asking a question for a gunsmith, maybe. But
Browning,
I
Browning
take my like
BLR.
troll questions.
Uh, I can tell you what a book says. I'm working on it. BLR.
So, what kind of book are you talking about here? Something that tells you if your dimensions are off or something, like a spec book? Or is this some kind of book about Browning BLRs?
It is exactly a book about Brownings in general.
So, it just has a bunch of tech specs or something in there?
Yeah, exactly.
Nerd. Nerd.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I've got a lot of old crazy books like that.
So, while you're looking that up, the next one is this is going backwards. So, this one is actually from 1/8. So, this is from early last month. If I have a bolt action rifle with an external non-removable magazine, can I load rounds into it and push the top round down to close the bolt without putting a round in the chamber? So if I have a bolt action, can I load rounds into it and then push those rounds down into the magazine and then start to close the bolt so that a round doesn't go into the chamber? I've never met a magazine where you could not do that. In fact, they're kind of meant to do that, I think. So it's a super safe way to carry around a bolt action. I think I'm explaining that the way they're asking the question, but so it doesn't matter if it's removable or not. If you can look down into your chamber and you've got the magazine there, so like on an SKS, some of them would come in and out. Doesn't matter as long as you can look down into it. Yeah, you can always jam your finger down. There's no magazines that are because of the nature of a magazine. Spring has to go somewhere, so unless you bottom out the spring, which I guess is possible in some magazines, so that you can literally not get one more round in there. But most of them are made to go full magazine and then down a little bit, so you can close the bolt on an empty chamber. And why would you do that? For safety when you're
Yeah, not go quite low enough for the to put another
for
round
another
in.
round. Yeah.
Yeah.
But safely skin it right over the top.
Yeah. And you want that little bit of pressure. That's the thing, is you want that little bit of pressure anyway, so that, when the bolt comes back, the rounds come up a little bit, and then you're able to feed. It's able to feed at that point. On the Browning BLR, according to the book I'm looking at, 1x1 by 16 TPI for that question. So, and that's all going to be in imperial or whatever. It's going to be an inch. So
1-to-1 per dots per inch.
1x1 by 16 TPI. That's threads per inch. So inch long by inch wide by inch long by 16 thread pitch, basically.
You got a favorite thread pitch? Not just for
No.
that gun, but in general?
No.
I like 7-to-1. I don't like bullets that twist more than 7-to-1. I'm suspicious of bullets that have to twist more than that.
That's a twist rate. You're talking about a twist rate.
Yeah. Well, what are you talking about?
I'm talking about the question where they were talking about the receiver threads.
Oh, those are I was thinking twist rate of the.
No, he was asking about it. It's way more technical than that. That's why I said, let me see if it's in this book. But
Gotcha. So you're talking the actual thread pitches of the bolt, or I don't even know what you call that, the threaded barrel itself.
The receiver end. Yeah.
All right. So what do you think? We just answered that one. If I have a bolt action with non-removable magazine, can I load rounds? Yeah, you bet.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much any firearm, you can do that.
Let's see. What is the difference between striker fire and hammer fired?
Nah, that's easy, ain't it? One's a striker, one's a hammer.
Striker fire is, So hammer fired is essentially the mass of the hammer coming forward and slamming on. Well, either it has a firing pin on it or it slams into a transfer bar, but essentially slams something that dents your primer. So the mass of the hammer coming forward, or the mass of the hammer combined with this energy of the spring, but one of those two things, right? So a striker fire is essentially accomplishing the same thing. It's going to dent your primer enough to ignite the primer powder. Yep. So in order to crush that primer, what you're going to do on a striker fire is essentially have like a nail punch. You have a nail, mill. It's just I don't know how else to call it except a nail. It looks a lot like a nail with some extra ridges in it, and that thing is held with spring tension. Like it's held back with a spring, and then they let go of the spring, and it pushes the thing forward, or anyway, it shoves the striker forward.
Hammer fired. Yeah, hammer fired is swinging a sledgehammer overhead. Striker fire is stabbing with a spear.
Oh, okay. There you go. Yeah, that's fine. That's a good way to say it.
Yeah.
So one of them, the safety is involved with stopping the arm from swinging, and the other one is the safety is involved with stopping the spear from poking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
then you get into actions, right? Like there's far more.
Well, there's single and double action always, and single action would be you're just gonna the hammer is back and the spear is back, and all you're doing is letting the spear fly. You're letting the hammer fly. A double action, you're going to be pulling the spear back and then letting it fly. That's two actions, or pulling the hammer up and then dropping it. Two actions. So either way,
but there's very few striker fire that are double actions, though, right?
No, there'd probably be weird, obscure French guns or something. Yeah, they only exist because somebody decided to make one out of spite. Yeah, they're not like common or anything.
And that just has to do with the physics and the mechanics and the engineering, I think, more than anything.
Well, I'm sure that the Glock design would never have been made up in the World War I because they didn't care at all about some of the things that they cared about by the time 1980 came along. Safety and the individual using it and blah, blah, blah. So there's certain things that they just would have never cared about in the old days. They just were trying to figure out how to make metal work to wrap around these new bullets that they invented in the United States, to keep tyranny away from them. Let's see. I think we already answered this one. Is it a good idea to, I'm not copying and pasting these anymore. Did you get that the hammer and spear from 4-H days, or did you come up with that? Or did you read that? You're harking that off of the NRA, or what's going on?
That no, that's something that I'm not going to take credit for. Well, yeah, I will. I'll take credit for coming up with it. Why not? But yeah, just training. I mean, single action, double action, hammer striker. That stuff you have to cover in instructor training and stuff. So that's the easiest way to come up with it.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. So the next question is it a good idea to alter the internal components of a handgun? Thinking of the things new gun owners are told to do by the internet. I don't know. Are there any? I mean, there must be everything out there, but I can't imagine too many people are saying, "Oh, you know what? You bought your new gun. Here's the first thing to do with a file."
Yeah, right. Um, I don't know that it's a good idea, right? I mean, if we're going to parse words in the question, if you're talking about your carry, uh, I would at that point pretty much say it's not a good idea, right? Because it says to alter, right? Like replacing and stuff is different than to me than altering. Altering is filing. Even a polish job to me is not really altering, right? It's when you really start taking altering is you're taking metal off, you're changing the shapes of things a little bit, not just making something smoother. Um, so yeah, if you're talking about a carry, a handgun that you're carrying, yeah, I would be way more cautious than like a range toy. And obviously, when you start going competition, I mean, a lot of things are altered when you start getting into competition world. So, big difference there. Tony out there is mentioning, a trigger spring. Um, yeah, that would be though. Very few people alter that. Like once upon a time, you would get people that they would stretch springs, they would clip springs, right? Nowadays you order a spring kit, right? And that thing's been tested. It's been through, you know, uh, or most manufacturers that offer that and stuff like that. They've done a certain amount of testing and other things. So, you've got the reliability and and safety and other things at play with it. So again, I don't parts changing. I don't necessarily throw into the realm of altering. You're right, G. When I hear altering, I think somebody's got the files out or the Dremel tool. You know,
No, I'm trying to think like if our goal here isn't just to offer our advice because anybody can offer advice. We're trying to offer a perspective as longtime gun owners or whatever. So if you think about your experience with guns over the years and gunsmithing and DIY,
right?
back in the day, you would buy a gun from the store, and then at some point it got to like, oh, you got to repair it. Like you can either do that yourself or you can take it into a gunsmith. And there was definitely always like reputable gunsmiths and flaky gunsmiths, and then people that just wanted to save money and people that could figure it out or whatever, people, whatever reason, doing it themselves.
Mhm.
So there's always been that. But I think that for a while there, maybe in the 80s, I'm trying to remember because it wasn't like I was doing it so much as just seeing its presence. But I know there was like a time there when like changing the color of your gun or changing your bluing to parkerization, because there wasn't all this many options as there is today, but there was like fiddling with your gun was a thing. And I don't know if that was like because of competition shooting. And it's like, well, if I'm going to be here with 6 other people, I'll shoot in the same Colt or something. Let's
Right.
fiddle with it. Or I can't send
Yeah.
it to Wilson, so I'll do something else.
Yep.
So then, you get to the 90s, and there wasn't yet like an explosion of gun owners, but then there probably was, and I wasn't just paying attention because I was living life and growing up or whatever. But then in the 2000s, when I started paying attention to the gun community, sharing it with internet, I would say that you had the combination of people who were inclined to be like fiddle, and then you had the modular platforms like Glock and AR-15 and 1911, and I don't know, even some of the other ones that are out there, Beretta and more, become to mind, where you started to have more stuff to fiddle with, and then people started to make stuff to feed the need, and now it wasn't like only Wilson and the Glock store have accessories, but like every gun show you go to, every gun shop you go to, every website you go to is going to have
Right.
accessories and options. So I don't even know now if people are even hesitant to jump into gunsmithing. For a while there, it was like, oh, that's kind of, you jumped into gunsmithing. Oh my, where'd you learn that from? Where'd you get that confidence? And then I think, I don't know. So I don't know. Where do you see that trend? Do you think it's been just always growing? Do you think it goes off and on? Do you think that it's we ain't seen nothing yet, or do you think that we're about to see the end of this as kind of a trend that's passing?
I think
Ghosting.
it's cyclical, like everything. Um, I can remember people. I can remember people. The community that new firearm owners, whatever. That's grown in cycles like forever. With political wins or whatever situations arise, new things come out, new technologies are developed that interest certain people, whatever, right? Um, and the same thing, the whole personalization. But you got to set aside. For me, you've got to set aside personalization versus um, factory tested, built, whatever. And I'm not talking about from the exact factory of the manufacturer of the firearm, but mass produced replacement parts. Let's say, right, whether that be a lighter, trigger spring, or whatever, and
Yeah,
then
changing the grips isn't gunsmithing.
the old dude in the gun shop that is literally filing, put it in a mill and shaved a thousandth off or changed the radius of a part or some weird little something like that's a whole different game too, right? And so um I think the days of people fiddling with the ladder, right? The filing, the the literally tweaking with the parts like that, right? Where it's not like I don't want to say a drop in because that makes some of the interchangeable parts or replacement parts seem easier to install than they may otherwise be. Some of them can be difficult. Um, but that ladder, the actual gunsmithing, the actual filing and things like that, um, I think the days of those get more and more numbered. Not because um, they're not because there's less people that don't want to reap the benefits of doing something like that, but because nowadays with modern firearms and modern technology and those so many aftermarket replacement parts out there, drop in. I'm going to use the word drop in, even though I don't mean it's easy to do. With those parts available, it eliminates a lot of having to do that. And I'll give you a good example. So I'm a big Browning Buckmark guy, been a big Browning Buckmark fan. And, I always did some tweaking with the sear string and polishing the triggers and changing the trigger shoes on, especially competition models we would use, right? So, into that latter category of a little bit of actual gunsmithing on those. And then here 3, 4 years ago, maybe longer than that, 4, 5 years ago, good Lord, was it 6 years ago? I don't even remember. But there was a company that came out with a part that eliminates ever having to mess with it, replaces the sear spring, right? And it's perfect. It's manufactured to a certain spec that's like you literally knock a pin out, you put this in. It's not that quite that easy, but you knock a pin out, you slide this in, you put the pin back in, and there's no clipping and tweaking, on springs or anything like that you have to do, right? It completely eliminated um, that aspect of things. And so I think you're seeing more and more of that happen, uh, which, for better or worse, eliminates the need of really having to get into things and play around.
Let's see.
Tony's mentioning checkering out there. Oh my God, checkering is a whole different. That's an artisan, not to play on artisan Tony, but yeah, checkering stuff is definitely an artistic thing that you better have somebody that knows what they're doing and is good at it.
Well, I think now he's saying now you just take it to a place and they laser it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, if you want laser, style checkering, sure, but there's something to be said about the old school way of doing it too. Same way as engraving. They can laser engrave, but I mean, the work that's done through laser engraving versus the work where somebody literally sits down with an engraver, you know, and does it all. Like you can tell, especially if you get a magnifying glass and get up close and all on it, much more beautiful work can be done.
Well, you don't need a magnifying glass. You can tell the difference between when somebody carves something and when a robot, sends a Dremel tool over a number of passes, right? It's like there's perfection, and then there's the the the, the presence of imperfections that makes it authentic, right? In reality, all the
Ah,
little
that's a good
chisel
point.
marks.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's more unique, I guess, right?
Yeah, it has a feel to it where the
Yeah.
robot ones will end up. And the other thing is on guns, at least, nobody puts really real effort into the laser engraving. There must be a couple that do, but most of them at this point, they got the dimensions of the revolver and they figured out. So they put essentially a border, a frame around it. And
Hmm.
if you look at that, that's just so they can line it up in their laser without having to, in the fixture that they created or whatever. So that they give themselves a little bit of play. And the difference there is that someone who's actually engraving it they can go all the way to the edge. Like
Yep,
they're doing it so they can get it to,
this is
have like
true.
anyway, so there's those kind of
A little more
differences where
intricate, little more intricate work is what you're saying.
yeah, a little
And
less
that's kind of what I was getting at. Yeah.
one in a million instead of one in, dime a dozen or whatever. Anyhow,
Right.
so
Yeah.
the next question is: Are detachable magazine fed shotguns reliable, or is my anti-magazine me just being a FUD?
They're as reliable as the magazine. The honest truth about that.
Yeah, they can only be as reliable as a thing that's designed to push up the weight of a shotgun shell
Right.
with the weight of other shotgun shells on top of it without pushing so hard that it delays the operation of a semi-auto. So it's asking a lot of a spring
And
to be differently tensioned throughout its operation forever,
yep.
back and forth. It's a lot to ask.
With a magazine fed shotgun, rim lock is at play as well.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Just keep that in mind.
So our detachable feed shotguns, I mean, I can go grab probably one. I'm gonna go grab one. I think I can go grab one. So I know Clover likes to talk about shotguns and everything, but I'm just not a
Heck
fan
yeah.
of shotguns, period. But shotguns that use a magazine sound like a great idea. But the mag lips on a shotgun need to interact with, because there's a lot of mass. There's a lot of space took up by the magazine for 12 gauge, let's say.
Hmm.
Doesn't matter because they're all the same. But there's a lot of mass. It's going to be a handful. So when that interfaces with your gun, that's a massive mag well. So right off the bat, nothing delicate here, nothing elegant. It's all going to be massive. If it's made out of plastic, now it's got to be thick and massive to be able to deal with all this tension and the strength and everything. So it's just huge. And then by the time you're all done and said, if you're lucky, you get 10 rounds. If you're lucky, some of them are 12, but they're huge, huge magazines. They look like 60 round,
Yep.
100 round AR
Yeah.
mags and something, and they're
Yeah.
holding 10 rounds. They don't weigh a ton, but they weigh. They don't weigh
To
nothing.
get to
And
get
they're
to
going to weigh something
20
empty.
to get to 20 rounds, it's literally got to be a drum.
A big obnoxious drum that
Yeah.
definitely isn't going to be able to, just can't feed right.
Right.
And like you
Yep.
say, rim lock, and then you got half of it's metal, half of it's plastic, so it can't push as hard as it could on if it was a 357. Think about it, 357, a 223, you can jam all over a 223 case compared to a shotgun shell case. So it's an uphill battle. It's done because in the United States we can buy whatever we want, and most
Oh,
people go out and just play. So it's this equivalent of complaining that like a quad, a
so
four-wheeler, can't get you to work every day. Yeah, big
yeah.
deal. So a shotgun that's magazine fed isn't perfect. Great. If it's fun and it gets your jollies, I know a country you can buy them from. Like you're gonna be able to buy them forever. They keep making them, but I'm not a big fan of them.
Right.
And for practicality, I can't stand them. There's no way.
Well, here's another thing that people don't realize when you brought up the shell itself, the hull is typically plastic, right? And so, when you're talking about any type of long-term storage with a fully loaded magazine, like you don't have a problem with metallic cartridge. Like that's not really an issue. But when you've got plastic and you've got, let's say, 8 rounds, or 9 rounds pushing on or whatever, the one at the top, it is going to oval shape, right? Egg shape, that plastic over time, especially with heat. You get heat variations and other things going on. It's plastic, it's not metal. And so, you jam that thing in one day and you go to drop the bolt and you're trying to put an oblong shell at that point into a into a round hole, and like it don't feed that well a lot of times. It can not go into battery, it can hang up, can do a lot of weird things. So if you do have magazine fed shotguns, just keep that in mind. I mean, one way you can eliminate that to an extent is by using a brass cased shotgun shell as your very first round. That's one way you can help to curb that a little bit, but that does happen. I have seen that. I've seen that personally happen with uh, box magazines or whatever that are loaded for an extended period of time, months or whatever at a time. And it also depends on the quality of the shells in there. Some holes obviously are more robust or thicker than others, and you know that
That's
sort of
something
thing.
that gun shops should be doing. If they're not, they're losing an opportunity, because gun shops get magazines all the time that, like, oh, I've had this magazine loaded for 12 years or 25 years or 30 years or whatever at this point. Anything from easily 22 years. Anything from Y2K could still be loaded.
Mhm.
Where are we at? We're at about an hour. I only have one starred from earlier, and I don't want to forget that one. So let's hit that one real quick. Weston asked, oh, I can push something on the screen. Weston asked earlier, how is the best way to replace or repair a stock on a Winchester 94? It's a 1997 model that was dropped on the butt and has a tiny chunk of wood broke off and a little bit of the butt plate chipped off. So
Well, you can get stocks everywhere. I mean, especially for a 94. So,
the 1977 stock,
oh
it's
yeah,
real
there's
wood.
plenty of
Well,
places.
so things to keep in mind is on a Winchester, we're talking about a lever action Winchester rifle. As far as I understand, and I'm not an expert on them, in somewhere like the 80s, they started making them with stamped internals instead of milled internals, and people who like them don't like the stamped internals. They operate a little more clunkier, I guess. They're not as solid or whatever. It's just tradition.
Sure.
So that's a decent one. Now I don't know the history of the wood, but I just know that in reality, the wood we used in 1977 is now gone from the planet or not used anymore. So the wood we use today is going to be farmed wood. In 1977, they were probably potentially still using old stock of old wood. So to get a real replacement for that might be more than just going and getting a modern replacement. But I might be totally wrong. I don't even know. That is
You're
a
gonna
very
go have
common
to.
vehicle.
Well, you're gonna have to go to a used parts house, but there's a lot of used parts houses out there. Like I know of
And this
one
is a very
now.
common rifle, right?
I know one of now. That's what I'm saying. I know of one now that's local. In fact, I've told you before. If you ever come through this way, I need to set up a tour of their. It's a little gun shop, but it's got a huge warehouse in the back. But they've been a gun shop for 100 freaking years, and it's amazing the parts and stuff they have back there. And I would venture to guess that pre 1980, let's just say Winchester 94s, they've probably got 2 dozen stocks back there. Now what are you going to pay for them? That's part of the thing too. Now, getting into, a replacement butt pad is not going to be that hard to come by. You said that was cheap. That was whatever. That was chipped too. Now I have a Browning. What's the little Browning semi-automatic? The SA-22, the Browning SA-22, that had a stock issue. Now this one had, for whatever reason, it had 2 holes drilled through it, and so similar issue in that it was something that, I didn't really want to replace the stock, but I definitely didn't want the holes drilled in the stock, and I don't know why it had 2 holes drilled through the stock. But anyway, I had an old crotchety dude around here. He's like, "Oh yeah, I can fix that," and it looks a little weird, but it doesn't look bad. And what he done was he basically went in and used like a Forster bit to get like a really smoothed up the holes, right? And then he plugged them. He plugged them and he sanded that down very carefully and real lightly. That way he didn't take a lot of wood or anything off, and he refinished it. And it looks beautiful. It has these 2 round spots on the stock, but other than that, it looks beautiful. So it is possible to take that and wherever it's chipped, maybe saw that and then put you a block of wood, shape it up, draw out your dimensions, right? And then take and drill, and I would go with potentially like a screw under a under a plug, right? So drill you a pilot hole and then drill you a little bit of a hole to countersink. If you wanted to do it yourself, you'll find you some wood that matches up grain wise and all that as close as you possibly can. Um, and depending on how much of a chunk we're talking about and everything, right? If it's a really really small place, it's going to be harder to do. It really is. But if it's a pretty good sized chunk, half inch chunk, 1 inch chunk, you could potentially take and pin that thing, glue it, pin it on, lightly sand it down, shape it, um, and then put you another butt plate on there, and you fixed it yourself, right? And then it's kind of unique. I mean, it's still got the history of, yeah, see here where you can see there where, it got dropped and it cracked that, right? So it's got a story behind it. No, but could be a cool way to go. Definitely would be cheaper.
So keeping the original or just replace it? For me, I would say it's worth keeping the original wood. Even with a chip in it, because that's more original than having a complete
Mhm.
repair stock.
Yeah, decent looking repair on it wouldn't hurt it too terribly bad. Not on a 1977, you know.
And I can't imagine too many people that are purchasing a 94, a model 94, that aren't going to appreciate some stories in it, that it's been some places.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're going to buy a gun, there's unless you're buying one to engrave it and put it on the wall, right? And if
Right.
you are engraving it to put it on the wall, what's the chance that they're going to engrave it to give it to somebody, a 94? You're giving that to somebody who's doing something. So there's nothing about a Winchester 94
Well,
that isn't just like a black eye or a scar. I guess I should say not a scar, a black eye, but it's just a scar, and it just
yeah.
shows that it's done stuff. That's the kind of gun that does stuff, and it's done stuff.
Well, and you've got another option too, right? Like just because, let's say it's not a collectible type situation, right? Let's say this is a daily shooter, right? Or a, year over year hunting rifle or something, right? And it needs to be usable, right? It's not gonna be very comfortable with a chipped off buttstock and all that potentially. And is it gonna bust more the longer you shoot it, or it gets thrown around in the pickup or whatever, right? Hopefully you're not throwing it around too much. But um, here's another option is like, you've got a lot of companies out there. Again, Winchester 94s very, very super common. You've got the option to go get you some laminate furniture, right? And for use purposes, right? Just put the laminate furniture. I mean, change the furniture altogether on it, right? And that gives you something that's usable and this, that, and the other. It's not a big deal to change furniture out. But then take the original furniture and put that up in a box, even. So if you ever had an issue where you needed to put it back original, yeah, you could do that. You could do that as well.
That's a good point too. If you don't mind throwing some money at it, then yeah, just go buy a complete set of furniture. Because now you're only talking about the handguard anyway, and probably buy the complete furniture for the same price you're going to buy stock anyway. And then yeah, go wail on that all you want, and now you've got your original stuff if you ever need to have it with it. That's probably the perfect answer.
Yeah. And Tony's right out there, by the way. He says they make wood filler that sets up like a epoxy and stains. Yeah. But even once you do that, I have done some stuff where I have filled in areas, and one of the things that I like to do is I'll always, once I get that filled in and then I get it shaped, even if it's a very small area, especially there at the wrist where it meets the receiver on old shotguns. That busts out quite regularly. And what I'll do a lot of times is I'll use the wood filler epoxy type stuff that he's talking about. But once it sets up and then once I've shaped it, what I'll do is I'll go back and I'll drill holes through the epoxy part into the actual wood that's there at least at some point, and drive some little pins in it or something, right? Usually with glue on them, and then and a lot of times it's too small of a hole in that situation. That's why I say pins, right? Little pins, because it's too small of an area to do like a wood dowel, or I would do a wood dowel. But then I'll glue those pins and I'll countersink a little bit, and then use some of that wood filler like on the top, and then sand that out. So I have done that too, and he's right. I mean, that stuff does work pretty great. You can fill in, shape whatever you need to, and it sands. The stuff I've done, it sands out pretty easy and everything too. You're just gonna lose. You're gonna lose some of the wood grain. This would be the only thing with the wood style epoxies I've used. That area is not going to have wood grain. That's why I say if you're able to use a little chunk of real wood and the same type of wood and kind of match the what am I thinking? The direction of the grain up a little bit.
Well, it
That
depends
tends
on if
to.
you're trying to make it look like it's not been repaired, or if you're just leaning into the repair, kind of like what you're saying.
Yeah.
Just
do you want it functional, or
cool.
do you want it functional, or do you want it to be functional and look as good as it possibly can? Right.
I mean, I've got,
that's a
I think
preference.
most of my shotguns my one shotgun has like 3 or 4 places the stock's been repaired. So it's not like, it's just like having a shovel or something with some tape on it. Nobody cares. It's just, okay, that shovel got dropped or something. Maybe somebody ran over the handle. Still working.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right.
I think we're talking about it too much. I think, the idea is that with that kind of rifle, like Clover said, just make sure it's working for you. You're not like compensating for a uncomfortable stock and missing whatever you're shooting at.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
All right. But let's see, we're about an hour in. Any other questions out there from folks who are live? We're not quite caught up. We have a couple. Carry law in South Carolina is a question. Carry law in South Carolina. So I'm guessing that's Night Strike. He's in South Carolina, and that sounds like something he'd ask.
No clue, but I bet there's a website somebody can go to.
And I literally just typed that into the internet, and it says South Carolina open carry, what to know about the law. Then you got South Carolina from concealedcarry.com. I believe you know that place. Open carry now in South Carolina. Important restrictions you need to know. That's from 2021. So that sounds like it was new. Open carry is new in 21. South Carolina concealed carry. Talking about the reciprocity back in 2021. So it looks like just from looking at the results of a quick YouTube or a quick internet search on, this is DuckDuckGo, it looks as though, here we go, NRA ILA, South Carolina gun laws. That'll be a nice quick summary. State Constitution has South Carolina. They have a state constitution. Article 1, Section 20 of that state constitution is a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Well, there's one reason that Night Strike keeps saying that all the time, because it's part of his state constitution also. It's weird that they made it Article 1, Section 20, and it's weird that they just directly copied the Constitution. What's up with that? Talk about lazy.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Come on. What do they think the Constitution? Everybody's going to forget about the real Constitution? Just, let's read theirs again. Whatever.
Well, that explains a lot about Night Strike. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, exactly. Why wouldn't he just copy everything? Because the Constitution, state constitution did it.
Yeah, why not?
Gun laws over.
It's not his fault. It's South Carolina.
There's no permit to purchase. There's no registration of firearms. There's no licensing of owners. There is a permit to carry for handguns. There's no permit necessary to carry rifles. They have enacted a Castle Doctrine. I don't know what no net loss means, but they have no legislation about losing nets. The right to carry confidentially. Oh my goodness. So I'm guessing that means concealed carry. It says provisions enacted. What does that mean? Right to carry in restraints. Oh no, restaurants. That makes more sense. Legal. They can carry in restaurants, I guess. Right to carry laws shall issue. Well, like every state is. Right to carry reciprocity. They have conditional recognition. All right. Right to keep and bear arms, state constitutional provisions. It says with provisions. I don't know what that means. So it looks like they got pretty decent reciprocity. Everybody except for Colorado, California, Washington, and Oregon, Illinois, and a couple of states in the New England. That's about as much as I can tell you about South Carolina gun laws from a brief check of the internet. This one we kind of talked about a minute ago. Can you leave gun clips, i.e. magazines, loaded for a long time without it affecting the spring?
Yep.
Or loading around into the chamber?
Yep. Metallic cartridge? Yep. The wear comes from use. So from compressed, uncompressed, compressed up the back and forth movement is what wears on springs.
Yeah, the use, not the set, right? Or something like that.
Right. Yeah. As long as they're in a fixed state, they're fine. It's when you start working them back and forth. Take, for example, a paper clip, right? Everybody's opened a paper clip, right? And worked it back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and eventually it snaps, right? Same type principle. You can bend it and leave it, that paper clip, however it's bent, and it's fine forever. It's not a problem. But you start working it back and forth, it's eventually going to break. So same type principle in magazine springs. The more you work them, the more they're gonna wear, basically, and the more problems you're gonna have.
Tony says no net loss is related to wetlands or hunting land when proposing new developments. So I guess what that means, if you're throwing a net on birds, you can't lose the net. You're not allowed to lose the net when you're hunting birds, I guess. I'm not totally
but
sure
only the way Tony says it, that only applies in new housing developments, though. And wetlands
new housing developments, of course. Well, that's why you would be so aware of it. Yes.
If you have lived in South Carolina a long time, I guess you're fine. So
you throw your nets on whatever birds you want there.
Yeah,
you can lose them if you want. They don't care. But if you're making new houses and you're trapping all them birds with a net, you better not lose that net anywhere. I can make. Right. What if a new homeowner was like, "Where'd this net come from?" They'd be startled. I could understand it being a real problem.
Right.
All right, so we cleared that up for everybody. Let's see. Well, there's only one question in here. I feel like if we get this question, then we won't have anything for next week. We'll figure out something for next week. But and then we did this all without Tony, so there's a good chance we've missed a whole perspective on this. Mm-hmm. But this question is: are revolvers like the later Smith & Wesson Model 36 made just as well without pinned barrel as compared to earlier pinned barrels, and why were pinned barrels ended? You got one around? I don't know if I have one with a pinned barrel. But anyway, so when they would put the barrel onto the frame, they would, they got the barrel and the frame are not always the same piece. Sometimes they're the same piece, but when they're not the same piece, they'll cram it on there, and sometimes it's just crammed on, and sometimes it's crammed on, then a hole is drilled, and then they put a pin through there. I'll go see if I can grab one.
Pin barrels are easier to get off and stuff is one thing. So.
Yeah, I don't think I got anything with a pin barrel. Yeah, they think that's the thing, right? If they're not pinned, then they're pushed on with some kind of robotic press or something. So it's probably from back in the days where they would get it pretty close and then cram it on and then put that pin on there to kind of keep it there. But then I imagine at some point they figured, well, with this robot, we can just make it a little bit bigger and this a little bit smaller and just cram with the robot just a little bit harder, and that barrel ain't never coming off without a robot. Mm-hmm. I guess or at least that's what I think. They just decided, hey, we can manufacture these a lot better tolerance now. We don't need that precaution.
Yeah, it's a manufacturing thing. I think it's why were pin barrels ended. Manufacturing thing was the case. Why would you fit a barrel on there, drill a hole, put a pin in when you can just take that barrel and go smack and it's done? That's I hate to say that, but easier process with the machining, and tech probably improved to allow that cost wise and whatnot.
Yeah, and it's not like they went, oh, this is better, and therefore we're going to do it this way. It could have been, this is way faster and cheaper, and nobody cares. We're doing it this way. And that could have easily been.
Because other than the collectability, right? So here's the thing: Smith and Wesson, everybody says, "Oh, it's got a pin barrel. It's got a pin barrel," right? That's the thing. Well, what if there never was a pin barrel? What if they always just crushed it on there, right? Smacked it on there. Like, would that even? There wouldn't be a thing. Like nobody would say, "Oh, that's an early crushed on barrel," right? It would be directly the opposite if they crushed it on and then nowadays they pin it, right? People would be like, "Oh, that's a crushed on barrel. That's a crushed on barrel." It's you know, it's there's them changing is what created the nuance surrounding the pin barrel. Had they not changed it, it never would be a thing. So
Well,
keep
and it
that in
was
mind
Smith
too.
and Wesson, and I don't know who owned Smith and Wesson when they did this, but was it the lock company or was it a family or who? I mean, I don't think a family owned it in a long time. But so Smith and Wesson makes this change, and like whoever this is that's saying this, I don't know how to say that name. It's the match shooters like the pinned barrels for perfect sight alignment because they know the barrel's not moving. Um, they make a
Yep.
change, and now everybody knows about the change. Like you say, now there's a before and after or whatever. Um,
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say, did Smith and Wesson do that because of a price thing, or did they do it because of a tech thing, or did they do it because of something else? If it's just a company with making a decision, you know what I mean? Like, then I guess everybody could get up in arms. But if they would have been like, hey, we've got this new machine that it can press it on and we don't need to put the pin anymore because it's so much better without the pin, then people are going to be like, oh man, you got the old pin model? You should have the new pressed on model. You know, they could have if they just did it as a thing and didn't even think about the repercussions. But if they would have been really thinking about it and, you know, been somebody in the lab going, you know what, if we press these on, not only do we save money, but now they're super precise and they can't be misaligned because the robot pushed them on so hard. You know,
Right.
if they would have hit the market
Mhm.
going, look, we made a new thing where we heat it up and jam it on there, or we friction weld it on there or something, like we're just making sure that it ain't moving and we don't need the pin anymore. You know what I mean? Then that would have been a whole different marketing thing than like, oh, you're asking us 6 months later where the pin went? Oh, we changed our manufacturing process. Well, now
Uh-huh.
everybody's going to make up their own decisions of why they did it, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think Smith and Wesson releasing their own 5.7, the round will be more popular and less expensive now? So what are we talking about? Do you mean releasing their own 5.7 pistol, or they're making their own 5.7 caliber cartridge?
I think he's talking about the firearms.
Because that would have been cool if somebody decided there's not enough 5.7s out there. We need a new
Yeah. We need a
5.7, like
new
a
one.
5.7 short. I'd be down with a 5.7 short. That'd
The
be
five
super cool.
seven. The 5.7 super carry, man.
Yeah, 5.7 super carry would be cool. That's a long 5.7, and then a 5.7 short is for all the 9mm shooters who keep get wrist break and shooting the
Right.
5.7. They got to have it dumbed down. I think a little tiny 5.7 would be cool as hell looking. Anyhow, do you think that Smith
Yeah.
making a gun will make the round more
Yeah.
popular? It's never happened before. They haven't
Nope.
even made their own calibers that they have named after themselves more popular with their own
Right.
guns. They can't do
Right.
that. And it's Smith and Wesson is fine. I don't have a problem with them because they're okay, but I have a problem because they could have been great. And it would have been
Yeah.
cool if somebody good bought that company and really made them cool. But instead, they are just really good, and then they sit on their really goodness, you know. And
Yeah.
they're not perfect, they're not amazing, they don't do anything, and they keep, you know, Hillary Hole. You can't help it, you know. They did stuff like that, and that's
Yeah.
because they're owned by corporate. They're not owned by people who really care that much. They're owned by corporate who keeps the company making guns, and they don't make it 100% bicycles or 100% flashlights, but they make flashlights and bicycles. You know,
Yeah.
they make other things, knives and stuff. So no, I wish it was the case.
They're
Now, what gun do you think, or what company do you think could make a 5.7 that would change the direction of 5.7?
I don't know. I don't
You
know
know
that
what?
there. I don't know that
CZ,
there is.
B&T, one of those companies makes some kind of 5.7 Wonder gun. That's a brace gun, little pistol brace Wonder in 5.7 with some kind of new mag. I mean, I don't know why the
5.7.
PS3
The
mag. Go ahead.
so the problem, this is I don't know. The question out there is assuming some things or supposing maybe some things. Um, do you think it'll become more popular? I think it's 5.7 is pretty popular especially considering the amount of stuff that's actually out there. There's a lot of stuff that's out there, and so 5.7 is already pretty darn popular. I mean, there's a pretty big following. Like everybody gets crazy over 5.7 and has for a while. The second part of that is less expensive. You're talking about a whole other issue. So the prevalence of firearms in the industry chambered in that round doesn't necessarily affect the availability and the price of said cartridge, especially when you're dealing with cartridges that have licensing and have, what am I thinking, patent issues and the things like that that surround them. And the 5.7 FN is one of those cartridges. So if anything, the lapse.
Oh, you can't just make a 5.7. You got to ask FN first or something.
The way I understand it, there's licensing, whatever. Yeah, there's issues with the 5.7. That's the issue with 30 Super Carrier, 30 Super Carry.
I didn't know that.
Too.
Who made 30 Super Carry?
It's a federal thing. Yeah.
It's super lame. You think they'd be like, please, 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 please use our caliber. Please, please, please.
So, but yeah, 5.7. I don't know of a ton of different ammunition available in 5.7. And
Yeah,
let me back up and say this: 5.7. As far as you got to know a little bit about how ammunition is manufactured. 5.7 is, and ammunition manufacturing is very similar in nature to reloading, and 5.7 is an absolute freaking nightmare in my opinion. So the manufacturing of 5.7 ammunition, as far as tolerances and making sure everything's straight and like quality control to be sure and things like that.
Done by robots. There's no way anybody can do that. It's got to be made by robots. It has little tiny bullets.
I know it's a pain to reload. I do know that.
Little micro robots too, not just regular robots. Little fragile micro robots.
Yeah.
You can't reload 5.7, can you? I guess anything's possible. That seems like a super weird round.
Yeah, you absolutely can. Yeah, you can reload 5.7. Yeah.
So I don't think 5.7 will win.
I call it a very popular niche cartridge. That's kind of where I throw 5.7. It's got a lot of following, a lot of popularity. It's a cool cartridge, but it's at the end of the day, it's niche.
Like if they'd make a shorter 5.7 mag or the PS90 mag, like I don't know why they the P90 mag, I think it's super cool. If they made one that was, it's 50 rounds, so if they made one that's 25 for something, like I don't know why they never did that, because then people would play with that platform a little bit. I don't know. I think that with AR pistols and those 9mm Wonder Guns, 5.7 should be more popular than it is. So I don't think it's a pistol that makes a 5.7 win, like a Ruger or a Smith & Wesson or anything like that. But I think, an AR in 5.7 or something else, something that's braced, that's whatever, when we get rid of the NFA, something that's where 5.7 is going to shine. And that's one of the reasons the NFA is the real culprit here. So it's not that Smith & Wesson can't make a good enough pistol in it. It's just not designed to come up through the grip. It needs to come up somewhere else. And then, or come up from the top like the 5.7 or like the PS90 does. But yeah, I think there's some potential. What about that the ounce in 5.7 braced or something?
Oh wow. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just thinking there's I think it's neat, and it's got the potential of being something kind of like I want to say why can't I think of the name of the movie? Starship Troopers-ish. The rifle that has just a lot of rounds, maybe Aliens, but imagine a 5.7 mag that is helical, like a Calico mag. So it's 5.7, but helical. So it, you know what I mean? Like that could be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of rounds, and it wouldn't weigh that much. And now you figure out something to put in there that isn't powder anymore. But think of like black powder, how they have those little, I don't know what they're called, but like a little chunk that you put in there instead of putting in grains of black powder anymore. You put in those like parts or pieces. What are they called? Plugs or something, like, just a plug of black powder. So imagine something that's more like that. And potentially you've got a bunch of plugs and a hopper, a bunch of projectiles in a tube, and you set the thing, like on the sewing machine, you set it for this many inches or that many inches every time the little foot moves. So you set this thing like, I want the projectile to be this big. Maybe the projectile is some kind of powdered copper dust, and then it lasers a projectile of a size and shape that you dial in, and then those get dropped down, at a certain rate, and then it puts a powder chunk behind it, according to your, put in 2 powder chunks or 3 powder chunks, you dial it in or something. So you don't dial in just the optic, you dial in your projectile size and your powder charge in the stock of this bullpup thing. So
right.
I don't know. Would that even be? I guess that would be NFA. If you made the thing a bullpup with a 16-inch barrel and 27-inch overall, you could do something that reloaded in the stock. If you made something that reloaded with each shot, that makes it's black powder, and it's a bullpup, and it's somehow semi-automatic or full auto, because it can be full auto and be black powder at the same time. So a robot that it reloads or black powders, whatever, into a bullpup, you'd catch every market, and then you make it in 5.7 caliber. You'd have every market. Everybody would immediately be enthralled by that gun. It would have to make money. There's no way that gun couldn't make money.
Right.
And then put a suppressor on it, because you can suppress black powder.
Yeah.
All right. So lower cost of ammo would make 5.7 right in my collection. That's definitely a component. It's easy to talk theoretically. It's different to consider how much it would cost to load up on 5.7 at any time in history. Like 5.7's never really been. It's been plentiful, but it's never been cheap.
Yep.
All right. Well, we've got questions coming in, but they're all over. We're just kind of rambling now. If there's any specific questions, let us know. I think Tony is probably still just having fun at the Great American Outdoor Show. Tony is going to be in Phoenix next weekend for our 10th annual AZ2A rally, so our Second Amendment rally here in Arizona. Tony's coming in to be one of the speakers. He's been invited in, but they're not paying him to be here, I don't think. They're helping him get here with his airfare, but the rest of it's on him. So he's trying to raise funds for that project. We'll drop a link here to diversityshoot.com, which is a talking and typing at the same time. It's a website that has a link over on the right to the PayPal. And every $5 you donate to Tony for his trip, we'll get you another entry for an SB tactical brace that he's using as a way to get people to help him get to Phoenix. He's up at Pennsylvania right now, hopefully making contacts and chatting with people. And then at some point, he's getting on an airplane and flying over to Arizona. So if you'd like to help him out, he's the founder of the Diversity Shoot, the 2A4E. Second Amendment is for everyone. It's like a orientation. It's like a familiarization. And then if people are comfortable and interested, you get to pull triggers and see what it's like. Opportunity to check out what firearms are like. As importantly, check out firearms owners and what a gun shop is like, what a shooting range is like, and the procedures. And it's a way for people that might not have any kind of friends or family or any kind of insight to what's going on with firearms to get an introduction to it.
Yep.
Otherwise, Clover, what do you got coming up? Anything happening?
Early 23 podcast season starts next week. So definitely got that. The schedule is finalized and laminated, basically. Got to nail down all the times and, of course, get everything scheduled out on the channel itself. But Yeah, that is coming. So should be a fun podcast season, and got quite a bit of things from Shot that have commitments and other things that have kind of slowly started to trickle in as far as review and videos and other things. Ooh, got echo.
Oh, I'm just deleting this weirdo. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm fine. That was it. That was
Oh,
it.
we're done. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I got zero policy, so zero tolerance policy. So that guy was being too weird for me. I just deleted him. I was going to ask you about your, what is it, 22 interviews you've got set up?
Yeah.
Is that something you're interested in talking about? How physically, like how technically you are, or keeping that straight, organizing that? I mean, is it like a piece of paper calendar? Is it a spreadsheet?
All of the above, man. Quite honestly, it's not nearly as organized as one might think. But I did have one double schedule that I had to deal with, and then I had one out of those that was a move around. I had somebody that it was like 3 dates open left, and they couldn't do any of those 3. So, they could, but one of the dates that they said they could do, I kind of swapped the people, the guests. I was able to arrange that. So, um, yeah, there's stuff we can certainly talk about and cover with setting up the guests, reaching out, setting up things, you know, getting it all scheduled, that sort of thing. Yeah, without a doubt. I just don't want it to seem like I'm some expert and have some awesome blueprint for doing it because
No, not at all. That's why I'm curious about it. Actually, we probably should do that on like a Tuesday.
yeah,
Since that's sort of the
totally.
purpose of the Tuesday thing. But
Yeah,
no, it's
totally.
actually there's the thing because that is it's a pretty big challenge. It's not quite like herding cats. People have an interest in doing it, but then life comes up and you've
Well,
got to have
it's
all kinds of contingencies.
so a little backstory to that, and it is kind of like herding cats because what happens is, you reach out to 40, 30 to 40 companies or people, right? And there was people that I even forgot to reach out to. It was like, dang, I should have reached out to that person, right? But it was too late. I already had spots full, and they all went so quick, especially this season, that it's like I was turning people away. I was like, I don't have space this season. Like you should have got with me quicker. I don't know what to tell you, right? Like, we'll get you on next, in the fall season or whatever. So.
Well, that was kind of one of the questions. Is it wasn't like you had 22. You got the 22. They fell into place, and then it was over. It was like you had 35 and 22, or what was the ratio?
What do you mean?
I don't know if you can tell, but he has his little tongue sticking out right there.
Yeah.
Was it like you had 35 people in mind and it was the first 22 to get back to you and
Yeah.
figure out the slots? Or was
First
it like
22
23?
First 22 to commit. Yeah.
But I mean, was the ratio like 35 or was it like 23 people and it
Oh,
wasn't that?
like 30,
Okay.
38. I'd say 38 to 40.
Okay.
And I would say out of the 38 to 40, definitely in the 30s got back with me. But,
Just not fast enough to be the
they weren't fast
22.
enough. Yeah, either there wasn't a date that they could work with or, everything was full or whatever the case may be. So, yeah. So, but that's good. Because number one, I mean, and this is something we can talk about Tuesday, quite honestly, but just real quickly to say that's a good thing that they fill up quickly and you have to turn people away because
Yeah.
that shows there's a demand for your podcast and they're more likely to jump on it when you throw it at them next season. Like, oh crap, I gotta respond to this because if I don't, I'm gonna lose. There's not gonna be any spots. So
Right on. Yeah, we'll talk about more on Tuesday, but it was something I had to was wondering because yeah, it was pretty cool to see a list 22. It's more than one a week because that's not 22 weeks, is it?
no, there's two. There's 2 a week with 2 or 3 weeks break because we've got NRA, we've got Shooting Sport Showcase. There's some things going on a couple weeks, and I don't have anything scheduled for those weeks. So
Got to go on your vacations and stuff. Yeah.
oh yeah, sure. But yeah, and I didn't do 22 necessarily even on purpose. You would think, oh, 22 long rifle, you did 22. I did 22 because my sponsorship ad packages proposals that I put out guarantee 18. And so I figured 22, that gives me 4 episodes that, things come up, the person's a no-show, whatever the case may be, right? Like that gives me 4 leadway to be able to fulfill the commitment on any sponsorship or ad package. So um, that's one reason I landed on 22. I could have done 20, but I'm like, I'll push it. And just the way the weeks worked out, right? Looking at the calendar, I was like, okay, I'll do 22 spots. And that gives, if we end up doing all 22, well, then the sponsor ad, whoever, they get a little better deal. So everybody wins.
And then you can do another season this year?
Yeah, I'll do late season. Yeah, I like to split it up and do early and late. So basically, I'll come out of shot and figure out guests and then get that season rolling. And then in the fall part of the year, go through the summer with reviews and do a lot of other things because in the summer, especially, I'm able to be outside more, shooting and doing videos and other things. So don't have to worry about rain and weather and things quite so much. And so, then fall time we'll set some things in motion, contact some more people at NRA, which is over in April, right? And then I'll be in touch throughout the next few months following that. And then we'll start getting the fall season scheduled. And the fall season should be around the same. Should be, 18 to 20 or so episodes for the fall season. So I want it to average out to about 1 a week. I just don't want to do them every freaking week all year long because I need time to devote to other projects, other parts of the channel and other projects. And we're talking on, we can talk about this Tuesdays. We're wasting content, man.
Right on. Welcome. Questions are coming in. How come 22 Remington Jet never took off? Because it's so goofy looking. It's way too bottlenecky. Right? I think it's too fragile of a looking bullet. What do you think? No, he's not even muted. He just doesn't care about 22 Jet. He doesn't like it.
Yeah, it's a little bit too niche, I guess.
Looks like a wine bottle. It's just such a weird looking thing. I don't think it could take off.
Right.
What suppressor works for a PX4 Storm? Probably most. PX4 Storm, isn't that the carbine or is that a pistol?
The Storm is the carbine.
So probably anything. I think it's got a lug on it too. If I remember right, one of the selling points of that thing was that it came with some kind of suppressor lugs right off the bat.
And that's got a 9. Are they just in 9mm, the Storms?
No, I think you can get them in like 40 and 45, unless I'm wrong.
Yeah. So what caliber Storm, I guess, would be the next question.
But essentially, it's like most carbine or any pistol can will work because any can for a pistol will work on a carbine like that. And the only thing you really got to worry about with most pistols is that if it's going to work with its barrel, and with a carbine, there's no barrel moving around or nothing. So you're not going to get so much pressure on the end of a rifle that you got to worry about blowing out the can on any of those calibers.
Yeah.
So I would say pretty much any of them that fit are going to fit. So if I'm right and there's some kind of lug system on the front of a 4, then you got what suppressor works, one that'll work with that attachment point. If I'm wrong and it's just threads out there, then anything that'll thread on the front. But that's probably the safest platform to put a can on, wouldn't you think?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's very cool. You'd have to, you want to make sure that you got the thread and then, proper bore diameter, obviously, for the caliber. You don't want to put a 9mm can on a 45, let's say. You could run a 45 can on a 9mm.
Yeah, that works actually just fine. Works really good. Not perfect, but it works really good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then 10mm shooting out of a 45. I still can't even imagine that would really be an issue. 10 is bigger, but it's not so much bigger that it's going to hurt a can or nothing,
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna have I don't think you're gonna have an issue pressure wise. Nah,
Out of a rifle, at least.
I don't think so.
So
Not with modern materials and machining and other things with suppressors. No.
and it would probably look pretty good on the way the storm looks. It would probably look good on there, and the sights would probably work over the top. I'm trying to remember, weren't they raised a little bit? So I think it was kind of designed to have a suppressor on it. So I
Right.
think they might even not have to have any alterations or anything.
Right. Right.
Let's see. Fall season is the premium season with all the hunting going on and Christmas on the way.
Maybe.
All right. Why did 3220 become obsolete, but 38 special is as popular as ever? Because 3220 went obsolete when cowboys didn't want to carry around the same rifle and revolver caliber anymore, or if they did, they wanted it to be a 4. And 38 special was a million years later, right? I think like the 50s or something, like much later, when police were still carrying around stuff. And it was the same issue with 357, it was the same issue with 38 and 357 as it is with 10 millimeter and 40. Some people were like, I don't think we should be having to shoot this powerful of a cartridge. I want to shoot a 38. And other people were like, I think we need more power. I'm shooting 357. And then they were like, we'll agree to disagree, and we'll buy these 357s, and you shoot what you want, and we'll shoot what we want.
Yeah.
And 3220 people were their grandparents. I think it's just a massive gap in time there.
Yeah. So I think there's a few things. I think that as the turn of the century came, and I don't remember what it was, late 1890s, 38 special came around, right? And that's when you've seen a lot of your 38 calibers come around, as a matter of fact. And so, there quickly became a shift from 32 for whatever reason, from 32 to 38, and that's just held on. I mean, with the invent of the 357 Magnum, obviously you can shoot the 38 special in a 357 Magnum, which is less recoil for plinking around, or whatever the case may be. So I mean, that's kept it popular. If you're talking about projectile options and diameter, think about 9 millimeter and how long it's been around, and then the popularity it's gained, despite people that actually have sense and prefer more better calibers. But 9 millimeter, 38, 357, all right there in the same projectile range, right? So, I think the design on handguns, from revolvers to semi-autos and all, that was just a much better fit than the 32 caliber stuff. You've seen a lot of 32 calibers around the turn of the century, the 1900s. A lot. And you would think that's where it goes. That's where we go back to a previous comment where they were like, somebody out there was like, "Oh, if they make more guns, will that help with the ammo or do this or the popularity?" And it's like, do you realize how many 32 caliber stuff existed in the 1900s? Like, it was amazing the amount of little companies, big companies, whatever, doing stuff in 32. And then yet we filled a question that says, you know, why did it become obsolete? So, the amount of stuff out there, it doesn't necessarily dictate. It depends on what comes along later and everything else. But I think with the 38, I think the invent of the 357 has had a drastic impact and renewal on keeping 38 special around.
All right, we went almost 2 hours, and Tony's not even in here to blame it on, so we're ending this one. Clover did talk about what he's got coming up. I'm going to mention I've got the robot project happening. Alan Laker is our friends over in California. They have not met this dog. They want to meet this dog, and one of our goals is to bring this dog over to meet their dogs, who are Boston Terriers, and then we can have some kind of a challenge and see which kind of dog is better, this pug from the streets or their fancy Boston Terriers that come from fancy schools. So, but they're getting rid of their sewing machine for whatever reason, and I want to buy that off of them. I don't have any money, so what I'm trying to do is create a crowdfunding project where we're going to make a patch design with this dog and the other dog, a marshmallow and chocolate or a marshmallow and bacon bit patch design, which is already in the works, and that'll be one of the perks. The other perks will be whatever we're able to make with the new machine, and some of the first stuff that comes out of the new machine. Since we don't know what that is yet, it's hard to say what it is. So we need 140 people that are interested in what we can do with a new robot. If you're one of them people, we'll put a link in here. Jump on board, grab a spot, and then watch what happens. Now, if you're not able or not interested in being part of the project, it's no problem. This little dog can not meet those Boston Terriers. He'll be all right. But if you could help us share the project, that would help a lot. And then maybe this dog would go meet those Boston Terriers. Look how happy he is when he hears that he might be beating some Boston Terriers. He woke up. So there's the link if you want to check it out. It looks like we got 17 days. I'm going to be spending the rest of the weekend working on some spots and some ads for that to get the word out about it. But thanks everybody for showing up here. We'll be back, Clover and I, on Tuesday to chat about creating content and what it's like in 2023 to be working on firearms focused things on the internet or YouTube. Thanks everybody for joining us. This puppy is being weird. He's all stretching while he's laying down. It's a new thing for him, I guess. No, he's just making himself right at home. He's getting awfully close to hitting that space bar, which would end this thing. So I better end it before he decides to roll over and do it. All right, Clover, you got anything else to say before we're out of here?
Nope.
I feel like this dog just came in and just took over the end of the show. AskGunQuestions.com is a website that we built back in 2007. And since then, for the last 15 years, people have been able to ask questions of simple to advanced nature, and we attempt to answer them in different ways over the years. Join us now as we start a new series to answer gun questions.